My name is Maya. Growing up as the middle child, I learned early that I didn't get to matter. My sister was the golden girl, my brother was the baby, and me? I was the dependable one, the one everyone leaned on when something needed fixing. For years, I carried that weight. When my sister fell behind on bills, I paid them. When she needed childcare, I canceled my own life to step in. When my younger brother got himself into trouble, I bailed him out, again and again. And when my parents needed something done, they called me first, rides to appointments, paperwork, home repairs, taxes, groceries, you name it, because they knew I'd never say no. That's how it always was. Even as a kid, I understood my role. Teachers would hand me awards no one remembered to clap for, while my parents rushed to get front row seats at my sister's events. My brother broke a lamp? I was the one who apologized and cleaned it up. Be the bigger person, they'd say, as if being bigger meant being invisible. Then the accident happened. It was one of those quiet, ordinary afternoons that flips your life in a second. A driver ran a red light. Sirens. Pain that felt like hot wires under my skin. Surgery followed, and a blur of hospital ceilings and beeping machines. When I woke up, it wasn't just the stitches that hurt, it was the silence. No flowers. No texts. No, we're on our way. Not from my sister, not from my brother, not from my parents. The doctor told me I needed rest. Strict orders, take it easy, keep the follow-up appointment, don't lift, don't strain, healing takes time. I went home with a bottle of pain meds and a list of restrictions that read like a stranger's life: no errands, no babysitting, no bending over to pick up the pieces for everyone else. 2 weeks later, my phone rang. It was my sister. No, how are you? Not even a how did the surgery go? She needed me to watch her baby for the weekend. I told her I couldn't. I had my follow-up appointment on Saturday, and I was still in pain. The doctor was clear. I needed to rest. She exploded. Selfish, she spat, her voice jagged with rage. After everything I've done for you. I almost laughed, out of disbelief more than anything, because I couldn't remember the last time she'd done anything for me. Then came the sentence that stuck like a shard: fine, then don't bother coming home. You're not welcome anymore. At first, I thought it was just words said in anger. But then came the breaking point. A week later, I showed up for family dinner, something we'd done for years. It was muscle memory, parking in the same spot, carrying the same dessert, taking a breath on the front step like I always did. I put my key in the lock. And it wouldn't turn. I tried again. Nothing. That's when I knew she had meant every word. My sister had actually changed the locks on our parents' house, without telling me, without telling anyone. I called my parents. Relief hit me when they picked up, like maybe this was all a misunderstanding. But the first words I heard cut me deeper than the lock ever could: your sister just needs a break. You wouldn't understand, you don't have kids, you don't have a family of your own. You know your sister. Just do what she needs. I stood there on the porch, the pie getting heavier in my hands, listening to my parents explain why my pain didn't count. Their tone was calm, rehearsed. As if the lock wasn't new. As if my absence had already been explained. As if I were the problem because I finally said one small word. No. And then, as if the lock itself wasn't loud enough, my phone buzzed. A notification. My sister had posted one of those vague family values rants online, thinly veiled jabs about selfish sisters who abandon family when they're needed most. She didn't say my name, but she didn't have to. She answered every cousin who commented. She whispered the rest on the phone to anyone who would listen. Within hours, my DMs were full of accusations. Aunts I hadn't seen in years suddenly had opinions about my character. Family first, Maya, one wrote. You think your schedule is more important than a baby? Not one person asked how my surgery went. Not one asked why the key didn't turn. That wasn't just neglect. That was betrayal. And in that moment, things that had always been blurry snapped into focus. I saw every Venmo request I'd paid without question. Every late-night favor performed while my own life sat patiently in the backseat. Every time my brother called in a panic and I cleared his overdraft, smoothed it over, bailed him out, only to be told later I was cold for not doing it again fast enough. I saw my own name on countless family group texts that used me like a button, press here, problem solved. No more. I went home and slept for 12 hours straight. When I woke up, I did something I'd never done before. I turned my phone off. Not for 10 minutes. For the whole day. I took a shower without jumping out to answer a crisis. I ate slowly. I breathed. The word no kept echoing, but it no longer sounded like a failure. It sounded like a door closing politely and firmly. It sounded like the beginning of peace. I drew boundaries. I stopped answering numbers that only reached for me in a crisis. I left the family group chat. I put my recovery first, because for the first time in years, I believed I was allowed to. At first, they all assumed I'd come crawling back. I always did. But I didn't. And without me holding everything together, the cracks showed fast. The calls started with a kind of performative patience. My sister, trying to sound breezy, "Hey. Quick question about the electric bill. Do you remember the login?" Then the edge slipped through, "Well, since you're not helping with the baby, the least you can do is help with this." I didn't pick up. A day later, she sent me baby pictures with the caption, "Your niece misses her best aunt." It wasn't love. It was bait, another attempt to pull me back into service. I still didn't respond. My brother's messages turned from jokes to frantic notes about a situation. He'd gotten in over his head again. A notice here, a fee there, small things that always snowballed into flames he expected me to smother. I didn't respond. My parents called to remind me about the gutter that needed repair, the tax form that needed filing, the prescription pickup that someone had to handle. I gently told them to ask the people who had a key. They tried guilt, then anger, then silence. But by then I'd learned something simple and radical. Their emergencies weren't my identity. Their comfort wasn't my job. And here's what no one in my family saw coming. The longer I stayed away, the more my life started to feel like mine. I went to my follow-up appointment without rushing. I told the doctor the truth about my pain and, for once, I followed the care plan without negotiating it against someone else's crisis. I slept. I cooked. I read novels with a blanket over my knees and the lamp on low. I stood at the window at sunset and let the sky rinse the noise out of my head. I picked up a paintbrush for the first time since I was a kid. My hand shook at first, muscle memory fighting old fear, but color came anyway. Small strokes. Then bolder ones. A field of wildflowers I once visited. A pale blue door I saw on a trip I never took because someone needed me that weekend. I hung the finished canvas above my desk and stared at it like a promise. I joined a Saturday hiking group. They learned my name from the first day. If I didn't show up, they texted to check in, not because I owed them something, but because they liked me. We watched the sun thread gold through the trees, and I realized I had spent years carrying people who never once looked up to see the light with me. Weeks turned into months. It's been 6 months since the porch, since the key, since the choice. Every now and then, someone from my family sends a message, an update, a complaint, a test balloon of guilt that floats above a one-line "hope you're well." I don't respond. Not out of bitterness, but out of clarity. I've built a life of calm without their constant needs, without being treated like I exist only to serve. In that space, I made room for joy I didn't know I'd been rationing. I took a weekend trip with friends who value my company, not my usefulness. We laughed until midnight and no one asked me to fix anything in the morning. I started a small volunteer shift at the animal shelter and a nervous little terrier decided I was her person. I named her Juniper. She watches me paint, curling at my feet like she understands what it took to get here. People sometimes ask if I miss my family. The truth is complicated. I miss the idea of them, the version where love meant care, where effort flowed both ways. I miss the fantasy that we were all sitting at the same table because we chose each other, not because I paid the bill. But I don't miss the lock turning against me. I don't miss the vague posts, the whispered lies, the chorus of cousins and aunts who found their moral outrage only when it was easy to throw stones at the quiet daughter. I don't miss being asked for more the moment I had nothing left to give. When I walked away, they finally saw the cost of what they'd taken for granted. My sister couldn't juggle her bills without my safety net. My brother learned what overdue really means when there's no one left to handle it. My parents had to make calls, fill forms, schedule appointments, and notice the small quiet tasks that used to magically complete themselves. The machine kept running, but it sputtered, stalled, and demanded their presence in ways they'd never practiced. They lost the person who held everything together. I didn't win by shouting or by fighting in public. I won by choosing myself. By stepping back far enough to see that respect, not blood, defines family. By building a life where I am not a convenience, not a utility, not a last-minute solution, but a whole person. My life is quieter now, but it's fuller. Because every choice I make is mine. They lost me. And in losing me, they lost everything they took for granted. I found me, the version of myself I was never allowed to be. And maybe that's the question for anyone listening. If you stopped carrying everyone else, what would you finally have room to carry for yourself?